Good morning. I will just give you guys a little heads up. I actually just left a team session with my students to come here. This is my lunch hour, so I'm in the Pacific Northwest. So thank you for this opportunity. I am a huge proponent of microbits because we've been using them in different activities for the last, 5 years, maybe 4 years, because when they've come to the US. So I'm always excited to get to talk about this. For my work, it has opened up doors, and I'll talk a little bit about the leadership piece of it, but I'm excited to share with you what I've been doing in a remote classroom in the Pacific Northwest in Lake Washington School District, where I teach ninth grade entrepreneurship. We were forced to shutter the school, right, and go home and do remote teaching from there. So we started working with Teams is our what we use for student management. But then we also used some of the tools that we had already available. And I knew when I started the school in the fall, what are the things that I knew I could look forward to? And right away, I thought of working with the microbit, because a microbit gives me that opportunity of doing maker work and driving student choice. And those are the two things that my students really thrive well with. So I didn't know who I would be expecting in the fall, but we did start with microbit. So every ninth grader got a microbit. So what do my classes look like? I teach entrepreneurship, like I mentioned before. It fits well with a nested curriculum that goes along with AP Computer Science Principles and another course they have to take, which is graphic production. So one of the things that's important about teaching that is that my students get kind of a full project kind of orientation with other classes, but then they also learn about different skills that will help them when they're making new prototypes, when they're making new projects. And again, microbit fits perfect into that piece. So I just brought up the research about entrepreneurial mindsets that I use as kind of a foundation. I have my students oftentimes reflect on these learnings, and in fact, they should be doing that right now because we just finished out a project. And then they can talk about things like communication and collaboration. They can talk about creativity, and you'll see that in the microbit project. They can talk about their future orientation, their comfort with risk when they try new things. So all of these you're going to see on display when they try new projects. So I will move on from here and tell you a little bit about what did we do with remote learning. Like I said, when we started in the fall, we went to fully remote. I haven't got to be in a classroom with my students yet, but what we have done is some really different projects for them to get them to try being creative. They got to do maker projects, and microbit was the tool that could give them that opportunity. When I started, though, I gave them microbits, but I didn't think fully ahead, like, they're going to need alligator clips. Shouldn't they have servo motors? Maybe they need things like getting nails so they could do a moisture sensors. Well, I didn't do those things when we started. So I kind of had students have to do kind of some maker activities without all of the other accoutrements that would make it kind of a fun project for them. So we got started and we did what we could. So we started with a maker project, so they could get familiar both with the interface of MakeCode, which is what we use, and then also get familiar with kind of building an idea, using the different tools, and filming. So you'll see that as well. Then we moved on, and I had this in mind that students would drive their own learning after this initial project where they all kind of had a baseline or a benchmark of achieving this goal. Then they would go on to the next project and have some student choice in it. So that's that student choice, student voice piece that empowers students to kind of take on their learning, take ownership of their learning, and explore interests that they have. So this is a project. I wanted to share this project. So the tools that they had to show in this project, this is a pre-version 2 microbit. So I was sad that we didn't have the new version of microbit, but we made do. So they're using the microbit. They programmed the microbit and they used the music. So of course, with pre-version 2, they had to, in order for them to have the sound that goes along with this, they had to film their sound. So they had to make a video that shows all this learning. They had to do a maker project that shows their microbit in their project. So it's a little bit of that maker, it's creativity, it's filming, it's programming, all in a project. And of course, they're all from home. So I get to see parts of students' homes where they did some cool creative projects. So I wanted to showcase this project just to see a little different work that was done here. So this is a student voice, by the way.
I'm ready, ready, ready. I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready, ready, ready. As you can see, I used MakeCode to program the SpongeBob SquarePants theme music, and I also used it to show SpongeBob's cyborg eye. I'm ready, ready, ready.
I'm going to be totally honest. I don't really watch SpongeBob, but I know he achieved what he wanted to do. So I was excited that he could show both programming, that he could show the microbit in a maker activity, and it was just a chance for him to be a little bit creative. So I like to showcase that project as one of the samples that students did as the maker project. It took about a week where I kind of scaffolded the learning, like gave them some of the pieces that they would need to do. We use WeVideo, which is a web-based tool for making videos, and they could import the content and do screen sharing as well. So those were the pieces that really helped to make a kind of unique project. And I saw a lot of Star Wars. So I heard a lot of Star Wars music based on the MakeCode Editor sound output. So I got to hear that a lot. I saw a lot of Lego stop motion was part of this project. There's a lot of unique opportunities for the students to share their work and be creative with the tools they have at home. And a little aside for this, I kind of liked it because of that. Like things that they wouldn't have in my lab, they were able to try at home. So I liked that opportunity for them to share. I'm going to move on here for another project. This was, now we're moving into that self-directed project. So this student chose to show the microbit hand washing tool. So this is her solving a problem that we have. And so I'll play a little bit of this video. She's using the microbit to basically have a self timer in it that will do different animations while she's washing her hands. And the whole purpose of that is to, one, make it extend so the person keeps watching the animation while they're washing their hands, so they're doing something. And then the second piece is she changed up the animation so that it wasn't the same all the time, so that somebody would go in there and go, okay, what do they have next? So that was why it was a little bit unique for this project, and I think it achieved those goals. Still self-directed, is solving a problem which she was more engaged in than doing something else, so I liked it for that project. This is another sample of a student, so I'll play this one for you. This one is she's actually using the microbit plugin for Scratch. So it gave you that Scratch Link project. And honestly, I just told students about this. This is on her own home computer because we can't install it on our computers. But really all it took was me saying, oh, you might even try this. And she figured out how to get it to work. So I wanted to promote that. And then I also did point students to Douglas and Mary Kiang's work in the MakeCode Editor, where you can see they have curriculum there. And there's also the Maker curriculum. So props to them. I always use them as a source for content, and I appreciate their work that they've done.
And she's doing that by moving the wheel, turning it, and so the microbit can sense her movement. And I've put my microbit in the center of the wheel, so whenever she turns it, it will automatically sense it.
And I'll stop here on this video because what I loved about this, there's a couple of things I really like about this. One, she had problems with the programming in Scratch, so she went to her CS teacher, which I love because then it's showing, you know, that she's trying to work through the issues and involving other teachers and making those connections with computer science. The second thing I loved is what happens at home again. Students are able to involve their families in user testing. They get their families involved in what they're doing, and it makes for a more collaborative event. They don't have usability testing that we can provide at school when they're at home, but they can tap their families. So I like that piece of it and bringing that content home for learning. The other thing is she learned how to work with Scratch Link. She made it work, and I really admire it when the kids see a solution to a problem and find something they want to try. And so I was excited to see this piece.
And she's doing that by...
Oops, I'm going to move on. this was where we started to get into some other samples. So we knew we had a customer, and our customer was looking for, well, we found a team, and this is my also an opportunity to shout out to Tammy Dunbar. She is a teacher that I'm working with in California. So we worked on a collaborative idea where we found a grant from Foundry 10 to send microbits down to Tammy Dunbar's students. And so we sent microbits down to them, but then we wanted to create a full curriculum unit. So we designed content around this. Drawing tutorials would mean that the students could have a picture of the code on the side, and then they could be going through microbit and working on it together. So some students took a choice. Some had, a maker project or an extended project they could do. Some did this, drawing out the instructions. So this gave a chance for some students to become subject matter experts as they're drawing out instructions. So it was another powerful way to personalize the learning and let other people try some different skills. So we have some gorgeous samples of students drawing tutorials for the compass, for plugging up. You guys know this one about when you're trying to put the headphones into the microbit for the sound to come out, for version 1, of course. And so they wrote instructions for how to set that up. There's quite a few different instructions that students created. Then we have the Make Code Markup Editor. This was a surprise, and I have a little sample for you at the end of this. But if you haven't got a chance to look at the tutorial tool that has been created by Make Code, it's really, really good. So what it is, and this is for my other students who, once again, they want to try something new. They're using instructions to write a tutorial. So they're learning how to use the Markup Editor, and they're using, it's almost like HTML, but they're writing the tutorials that we were going to use for Mrs. Dunbar's students. So you have here, you can see at the top here, there's a pop-up screen. They can click OK. And then if you'll notice here up at the top, these are the same instructions that you see on the Make Code site. They have numbered instructions that they have here, and they can go through and make their own tutorials. I had groups of students, so I broke them up into small teams. So some teams were working on drawing up the instructions and giving each other peer edit. Some kids were working on this part, the Markup Editor for Make Code, and they were working on giving each other tips. So I had one student that took the lead on this. He found the documentation here and just went to town and started figuring out how to use it, and then he became the expert for the rest of his group. So I wanted to point out that if you have students that are really advanced, maybe they write the instructions for other people to use, or maybe you work in a collaborative team with a group of other people to actually make up those instructions. So I highly recommend this because it was very exciting. I have just a few more things to show you, and then I will go back to this Markup Editor so you can see it. This is the Markup Editor that you can see here. Here's a link to the project. And if you'll notice here, there's these hashtag. It does the introduction. That's what you see at the beginning. You'll have hashtag Flashrama Writes, part you see. Then you'll see it's time to show code. And then you have an @show dialog, which gives you a dialog that pops up. And then there's your introduction. The hashtags, the double hashtags, correspond to each one of these little dots, like a new page. And so this was so fun for my students to kind of step into the role of writing tutorials. So again, they're subject matter experts. This time they're using, though, the Markup Editor. And the cool thing is this Markup Editor isn't just for microbits. So if you have groups of students that want to use the Markup Editor and do it with Minecraft, the Circuit Playground Express, they could do it for all these different tools. It's all available in the Make Code Tutorial Editor. I'm so excited about this tool because we're going to keep using it this year. But this is where it finally gets to the most exciting part for me. It's here with the mentoring piece. I work with high school girls who deliver content, and I did want them to be part of this group today, but they're underage, so we couldn't have them in there. But I can tell you that if you are interested in doing a collaborative partnership, my high school girls there, and there's females and males that are working, anybody is welcome into this group to be an expert. But if you're interested in this, we have opportunities to collaborate together. So what you're seeing here is what was delivered. So if you remember, I was talking about the online tutorials, those written instructions, the tutorials, these are all what we see here that they created for Miss Dunbar's class. But they're always available for more people to work with. We love that. So over here in the top right corner is Tammy Dunbar. I highly, highly recommend following her if you're not already following Tammy Dunbar. This is one group of students where we led a Saturday workshop. This is Ashna. Ashna is now in her sophomore year at University of Washington in CS. She leveraged her work as a leader into projects that she could do at college level, and she's still working well. She also became an expert for all of our our lower classmen students who are working on different projects and outreach they were doing. So that was Ashna. This is my current group. This is my first core group of leaders that started out last year doing Maker Ed. They started a project where they hosted a workshop, and it would be for five sessions in the evenings, and then they continued on to host different events. So this was what they were doing, and they're still doing this. Over the summer when we went remote, they started working with thanks, Katie. They started working with more opportunities. So they contacted our public libraries, they contacted a community center and offered events and programming. And currently, these are the people that are working with Mrs. Dunbar's students. So once again, if you are somebody who's interested in finding out more, if you would like to collaborate and we could do some microbit projects, please contact me at either Twitter or my email is listed here. This is what my students are doing, and we would love to work with other students. They're actually sad this week because they're doing like an hour-and-a-half session with Mrs. Dunbar's teams, and we've broken them up into 4 different groups. So they will host, and Mrs. Dunbar has about 10 kids in each group. So they come back and work with that same group of 10, and they were like, but wait a minute, what are we going to do during CS Ed Week? And I was like, you guys are doing enough. So if you want an opportunity to work with them beyond CS Ed Week or even next week, they're available, and they want to work with more people because they get so much out of this. They are currently juniors. They are what I consider engineers, and they're environmental scientists, and they're mathematicians, and they're programmers. So this is who we could be collaborating with if you are interested in that. So just a heads up that you guys have my contact information. And look at you guys, I have 4 minutes to spare if we want to do questions. So maybe do we open this up at this point to see if people have live questions?
I was about to just suggest that very thing, Melissa. So if there are questions that people want to drop into the chat or into our Q&A as well, we can make sure that we funnel those to Melissa. I love the invitation to collaborate, Melissa. I think that is such an important part of, the microbit community of education, of, empowering students, that they realize that they're not working alone, and that, there's a broader community that wants to collaborate. So thanks for calling that out.
Well, and I think you guys will appreciate this too. We know that Do Your Bit is coming up. We know that the content is going to be released. I think it was January 11th is when it's released for public. Is it January 11th, I think? And so we actually are thinking doing design thinking charrettes around that. So these students could help other students design think around a Do Your Bit solution, which is, I think, one of the best parts is you can have people kick around ideas and help you with some programming questions. So if that's an interest to people, that whole concept of Do Your Bit, we're going to do that with Mrs. Dunbar's kids, but that doesn't mean we can't do it with other students as well. And then, our kids also have things to learn. So if you want to teach us something, or if we want to do something, oh yeah, and I see what are the collaborative opportunities that are available. Yeah, STEM Smart Labs highly recommends a Do Your Bit design thinking challenge would be something they would really like to do. And they're really good at this. By this time, these kids have been working, we're in a small STEM high school. We do a lot of problem-based learning, a lot of collaboration.
Are there any things that you've come across, Melissa, in, over the last little while that you would love some collaboration or some input on as well? I'm thinking more selfishly for you now to share those. If you could put that into the community of Microbit Live, what would you love to get from our colleagues?
I would love ideas about what people are doing for raising funds. Because we tried, like I tried Donors Choose, but it doesn't work because it's not directly for my class, because it's outreach for somebody else. So that didn't work. Foundry 10 was outstanding in terms of providing an opportunity, because my girls actually got to write a grant proposal, and that was really powerful. But I would love it if we could be reaching Indigenous people and doing training and some kind of collaboration. Like, I'm big picture. Like, if there's people that we all want to work together, that gives me so much energy. I love it.
Wonderful. So just in the last minute we have here, I see that Jennifer Taylor's dropped in a question here. And, have you done any work with both the Microbit and the Arduino together?
Well, funny, Jennifer, what we're doing right now is our students are transitioning from using the Arduino using the Microbit to now we're doing the Arduino. But what I have found is that some of my students go back to using the Microbit when they want to do a fast prototyping, when they want to incorporate it into a game. We do a little bit of both, but do you remember I was talking about the Makecode editor? Guess what they also have? If you go down to the maker space, you can choose the language that you want to use the markup editor with. It actually has Arduino. So we're going to incorporate those in together. Hi, Garrett. Yeah. Yep. Thanks. Oh, Garrett is saying that the Do Your Bit stuff is already available, which will be really nice, because we can actually bring that to Mrs. Dunbar's kids early. Thanks, Garrett. Any other questions? So Claire, I think, did that answer the question? Oh, yes, please, Claire, you know how to reach me. I would love it. I would love it. Anything that I can get. Again, they love interactions. They love collaboration. And I know it's something that they're really interested in. They're still juniors, so they still have another year of high school where we can kind of keep doing collaboration. So we've got a lot of time with them. Hello. This was very fun. Again, I hope you guys find me at mwrenchey@lwsd.org is my email. But other than that, I sure appreciate your time. This has been so good. I love microbits because I feel like I'm one of the biggest fans, but I'm very excited about version 2. So, thank you. Thanks, Juarez. Good stuff.
Wonderful. Well, we'll wrap it up there, so we give time for our attendees to maybe drop by the digital lounge. I think Sue has shared, and Wars and Gareth have also both dropped in some information about Do Your Bit. So if you're looking for those resources, they're in the chat, but also in the lounge under digital resources. Melissa, thank you so much for sharing. Your passion is obvious when I think you start an opportunity to share what's going on. It is infectious. So thank you very much for spending some time with us today. And I hope that you're able to stick around and engage with the attendees over the rest of the conference.